Hello, my friends. It's Julie again from Dragonfly Awakening of Colorado. Last time on Transformation Station, we talked about trusting yourself again after years of doubting your own intuition and looking outside yourself for answers. That step is huge because once you stop outsourcing your truth, who you actually are becomes much clearer. And that's what today's episode is about. Today we're talking about what it means to live beyond the wound, when your old wounds are no longer running the show, and you're starting to live from what's true for you now. After you've done a lot of inner work, something strange often happens that you might not be prepared for. Life can get very quiet. The emotional storms don't hit you the same way. The old triggers don't grab you as hard. The inner chaos that used to be near constant starts to fade out. And you'd think that would feel peaceful, finally, after all this time and hard work. But a lot of people feel uncomfortable. Because when you've lived inside survival mode for a long time, chaos feels familiar. It feels like home, like being alive. So when your nervous system finally starts to settle, the absence of that constant intensity can feel like something is missing. It might even feel like emptiness. People will say things like, I feel flat, or I feel bored, I feel disconnected, I feel like I lost my spark. But what is really happening is that your body is no longer being flooded with stress chemicals all the time. Your system is learning how to be regulated. And in that space, the soul finally has room to breathe. When you're in this phase, this doesn't necessarily mean numbness or depression, and it doesn't mean you're losing yourself. If this sounds like what you're going through, it may simply be what it feels like when you are no longer bracing for impact. For the first time in a long time, you are not waiting for something bad to happen. You are simply here, and that can feel very unfamiliar. You might be used to always doing, always trying, always pleasing, always proving that you're good enough. But now you're in a place where you're good enough whether you do anything or not, and whether anyone approves of you or not. You're just here, being you. And that sudden calm can actually bring up a surprising amount of fear at first. So if you're in this quiet right now, know that it is not a void. You're not empty, there's nothing missing. Your soul has space to stretch out now. And in that space, something new is getting ready to emerge. When your life has been controlled by a wound for a long time, it does not just hurt. It becomes who you think you are. Your coping strategies become your personality. Your defenses become your boundaries. Your trauma becomes your story, and many of your decisions are made out of fear. So even when the pain starts to ease, there's this other in-between phase, separate from what I've spoken of before, where something deeper has to shift. Because if you are not the one who is always bracing, always fixing, always trying to stay safe, then who are you? It's easy for people to feel lost here. They say things like, I don't know what I want anymore. I don't recognize myself. And don't worry, that is exactly where you're supposed to be. The version of you that was built to survive had a job. It kept you alive. It kept you safe and functioning. It helped you get through things you should never have had to go through. But that was never you. That was never meant to be your true self. That was armor. So when that armor starts to come off, it can feel like you're standing on shaky ground or like you're falling apart. You're not, though. You're just becoming real. This is the part of the journey where the wound stops being the center of your identity and your soul starts to take its place. And that can feel both liberating and scary at the same time. When the wound steps out of the driver's seat, you stop being pushed around by fear and old patterns. and you start moving toward what actually feels true for you. You start to feel pulled instead of pushed. Resonance starts guiding your life because it no longer has to compete with whatever else used to be the loudest. Things that once mattered deeply may suddenly feel unimportant or just not very exciting anymore. Things you never cared about before may start to really call you. Your intuition becomes quieter but clearer. It is not shouting anymore because it does not have to compete with panic. You may notice yourself making choices that wouldn't have made sense to your old self. You rest more, you say no more easily, and you may walk away from situations that don't feel right, even if you can't really explain why. And maybe you no longer feel like you owe anyone an explanation. When this happens, you're not becoming careless or indifferent. You're becoming more aligned. Your soul doesn't care about drama, and when you finally let it come through you, it shows you that you don't have to live in drama either. Your soul lives in truth, simplicity, and what feels right in your body. So when it starts to lead, life can look slower, calmer, and more spacious. Once you understand what's happening, you realize you haven't really lost anything. You're just returning to yourself. Something people don't talk about very much is that when you change in this way, there can be some grief that comes with it. Even if your old life was painful or the old patterns were exhausting, even if you would never ever want to go back, no matter what the change may be, there can still be a sadness for who you were. You might miss the version of you who tried so hard, who was hopeful to a fault, who held on too hard, who believed in things that you know now are not true. You might even miss relationships, dreams, or identities that were built around the wound, even though they were never really good for you. And if you do miss those things, that doesn't mean you're going backwards. It just means you're letting go. Every real transformation includes a little bit of mourning for what no longer fits in your life. You are not betraying your past self by moving on. You are honoring them by finally letting them rest. When you're no longer living from the wound, life stops feeling like a series of things you have to manage or survive. You will naturally stop constantly scanning for what might hurt you, and you won't always try to fix, control, or protect yourself. Instead, you start listening to how things feel in your body. You notice when something feels open and easy, or when it feels tight or heavy. And you start trusting those signals. This is what it means to live from resonance. You choose the conversations that feel nourishing, the work that feels right, the people, the places, and the rhythms of your life based on what supports your nervous system and your soul. And it's not because you're avoiding pain. It's because you finally know what alignment feels like, and you're respecting yourself enough to stay in that space. And that changes everything. You don't have to justify anything. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to prove anything. You simply live. Living beyond the wound does not mean nothing ever hurts again. It just means that pain is not who you are anymore. Your past no longer gets to decide your future. Your nervous system, your intuition, and your soul are finally on the same team. And if you are in that quiet, spacious, unfamiliar place right now, know that you are not lost. You're just transitioning from who you were to who you are becoming. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this episode helped, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might need it. If you'd like support as you move through this part of your journey, I offer energy healing sessions, and you can learn more or book a session at dragonflyawakening.com. And if you're moving through an especially challenging transition right now, I'm also offering life transition support sessions for a special rate of $50 through the end of February 2026. Unlike my full in-depth sessions, this is a 45-minute targeted session to help you release emotional and energetic overload so you can feel clearer and more at ease as you move through this transition. You can schedule an in-person or remote session at dragonflyawakening.com by sending us a message on the Schedule a Session page. In the next episode, we're going to take this even further by exploring what it means to fully step into who you are becoming, to stop organizing your life around pain, and to start living as your healed self. Until then, please take good care of your beautiful self and keep shining your light. Bye.